My next guest is Grant Field, Chairman of MGI Australasia and also the Managing Director of MGI South Queensland. And MGI is an alliance of independent accountants and business advisors. Welcome to the program, Grant.
Good morning, Alan. Thank you.
Now, you also do a survey of family businesses with the RMIT. My eye is drawn to the age in years of the average age of family business owners, up to 58 now in 2013, from 55 back in 2006. So they're getting older. Does that mean we're going to have a whole bunch of family businesses coming onto the market fairly soon as they retire, or are they all just going to have to keep working until they're well into their dotage?
Well, that's certainly one school of thought, Alan, is that there will be a glut of businesses on the market in the not-too-distant future. Personally, I don't subscribe to that view. I think there's some normal demographic trends at play here. I think if you look at...
Which is that people are living longer.
Absolutely. And if you look at some recent ABS surveys, they're actually saying, they interviewed a group of 45-year-old people, and they indicated that they didn't, two-thirds of those said, we don't envisage retiring before age 65. Similarly in the...
Because I thought the purpose of a family business or starting a business was so that you could retire at 50. That's the whole idea, isn't it?
Well, I suppose that's an interesting question because this MGI survey does look at the motivations for starting a business, and overwhelmingly people entered into their own business because they wanted to be independent, they wanted to fulfill a dream, and they wanted to achieve financial success. They didn't necessarily enter into it to hand it across to the next generation or to sell it.
So how much of your work is involved in helping businesses organise their succession?
Very much. I mean, our particular business in Brisbane is over 90 years old, so we've got clients who've...
This is MGI?
MGI have gone from the first generation to the second generation, and even we've got some clients who've gone to the third generation.
Right. So, and how difficult is succession typically?
Yeah, look, I think it depends for each...
It's a Dorothy Dixon, that, because I know it's hard.
Yeah.
I deal with family businesses a lot.
I think it depends from case to case, and certainly what we find is where there's multiple siblings, there's the perennial question of which sibling or siblings do I hand the business across to, and there's a whole issue there around do they buy it or do I just give it to them? And then if you're just handing it across to certain of those siblings, you've got some equity issues, obviously, with the other siblings.
So what do you tell them?
Well, depends on the circumstance. I mean, what we will generally do is work...
You're a consultant, you probably tell them what they want to hear.
We'll generally work through a process with them, actually, to understand the private motivations of the individual siblings involved, because what we'll find is some will want to take the business, run with it, reinvest the capital, grow the business, and really give it a go. Other members of the family, on the other hand, may be happy to take a more passive view, get the dividend check if it comes every quarter, and take a hands-off view. Others still will be happy to work in the business, but perhaps not in a leadership role. But again, often look forward to the dividend check. So there can be some conflicting positions there where you may have one sibling who's looking to grow the business and reinvest the capital back in the business, and you've got other siblings who are actually just waiting out for the dividend check each quarter. So I think it's important to understand their personal motivators.
One of the differences I often encounter, or the interesting differences, is what you mentioned before about whether the next generation buys the business off their parents or do they wait to inherit it.
Yep.
What are the issues there? Is it to do with if the owner of the business needs to retire, they obviously have to have some money to retire on. They can't at that point, I suppose, hand it over to their children for nothing because they won't have any money to live on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, fortunately, most of the clients I deal with happen to have quite a healthy self-managed super fund balance, so they're in a fortunate position that they can hand the business across to their children if they want to. My experience is, though, most of them because there's multiple siblings and some of those won't necessarily want to get involved in the business, there has to be this perceived equity where it's sold to the sibling who's continuing to run the business, and whether that's done as if you like, a vendor finance or some arrangement comes to bear in the estate planning of the parents. There are multiple ways you can deal with that issue, but invariably evaluation at that time to satisfy everyone that sibling A is paid a fair price for the business.
A lot of the people that I've spoken to, they actually spend time in the 10 years leading up to the succession event building up other assets outside the business, so that they can leave those to the children who don't want to take on the business.
Yep.
So I guess that's another way of dealing with it.
It is, yes. Yep. And again, from an estate planning point of view, they might say, well, I've left you or given you the business as child A. Child B, I'll leave you the family house or my super or whatever. Yep.
What do you find most gets in the way of an effective succession?
Well, I think with anything, the communication is absolutely vital, and the dynamic of a family business is very different to another business, because you've got that personal family relationship that I think the founders of the business are particularly concerned about disrupting. They don't want to have that family relationship in disharmony. So that's a very important area that's got to be balanced. One of the other things, obviously, is there is a reluctance to plan for succession by family and private business, and that's been borne out in the survey over the last 10 years. Interestingly, though, 2/3 of businesses would sell if they were approached. So there seems to be this willingness to take any offer that comes along, but without necessarily doing the planning for it along the way.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, but a lot of businesses, according to your survey, don't have adequate planning. About 1/3 of them don't have enough of a retirement fund. Yeah. Which is surprising. I mean, I suppose a lot of them think that the business itself is the one that's going to do it for them, and sometimes doesn't do it. That's
true. I suppose the flip side of that's also true, Alan, is that 70% of them do have an adequately funded retirement program. And look, I think one of the things that is overlooked in this call for succession planning is everyone seems to say that businesses must plan. But I think the three things you need for successful change, and that's what we're asking business owners to do here, is change. There needs to be a level of dissatisfaction of the existing business owners to exit the business. So there needs to be some pain there, because if they're not feeling that pain, then they're not necessarily motivated to do anything about it. It's like if you and I want to lose weight. If we're not sufficiently dissatisfied with the current position we're in, we're not going to go and make the effort to lose it. I think the second thing that's needed for that change is to have, if you like, a vision or what am I going to retire to? If I hand across my business, what am I going to do afterwards? And as 30 years of retirement is a long time to play golf. So I think it's important for the business owner to have clarity on what the future is going to be.
Well, it's been very interesting talking to you, Grant. Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure. Thanks, Alan.
I've been talking to Grant Field, who's the chairman of MGI Australasia and managing director of MGI South Queensland. Now, MGI is an alliance of accountants and business advisors specialising in family businesses.